myself here. All right, fantastic. Hey, welcome everyone. And I trust everyone's enjoying a fantastic summertime, getting some sun. And, we're halftime right now. We crossed over, we're in the third quarter. And, we look at this thing called our database, and we look at our relationships and how do we maybe make some halftime adjustments right now? Have we been really thinking about our database as intentionally as, well, maybe we should be? And is it time to make that pivot now as we go into the second half? I mean, is the second half your comeback story like, Tom Brady against the Atlanta Falcons in that amazing, Super Bowl feat that they had? So as we jump into this, let me first introduce myself in case we've not been introduced or met. My name is Steve Schlueter. I'm the co-coach and the author of a program called Never Ending Referrals that is part of our MAPS Fast Track coaching program. And today we're going to touch on, really, when you think about how do I make this, how do I really get the absolute highest financial return on a database? And you heard us here today talk about $50 for every $1 invested. And I'm going to tell you about an example of someone actually who is doing that, and that this is not just a contrived idea. It's a set, and it involves these three things. We're going to touch on these today. It's a mindset, it's a skill set, and it's a system. If you're going to optimize the return, in fact, write that down. And if nothing else you leave today, you start to look at how do I align my mindset, my skill set, and what's the system that's going to get me the absolute highest return on my relationships. And if I don't have a robust database, the other part of that is how do I build one quickly? And these are the things, of course, we touch on Never Ending Referrals, and we're going to give you some introductions and some actual systems and tips you can put to use right in this session today. Got a couple of gifts for you at the end of our conversation today. I'm going to give you a conversation that's easy to use with your database, even the people you've been out of touch with. So if that's part of your second half is connecting with people I've been out of touch with, well, we'll give you a tool to do that. And then nextly, I've got another gift for you. It's a book. And so we'll tell you how to get your hands on that at the end of this session today. And of course, we'll invite you to find out more and join our Never Ending Referrals community, and we'll tell you how to do that as well. So again, in case we haven't been introduced, my name's Steve Schlueter. I started my real estate career in Austin, Texas, with a very small database. I knew 26 people. I had not lived there long, and initially built it around prospecting. And, in fact, expired listings were the heart of my business. And then the market shifted and there weren't many. And thank God I had put the names in a database, and yet behaviorally, I had some challenges. I'm a high assertive, my mentor had told me I had to be everybody's best friend. That didn't sit well with me. I thought, man, I've got 4 friends. I don't need any more friends. And yet I learned later how to be the trusted advisor. We're going to speak to that today. We're going to give you a conversation, a tool that can help you put that in place right now, and even use that as your reconnect point as you go into the months ahead, especially as you go into this third quarter. But as an agent, I was selling just over 100 homes a year, began a leadership career with Keller Williams in 1998. Gary Keller reached out to me, and after several no's, recruited me to be the team leader of the Austin Northwest Market Center. Prior to that, I was one of the top 20 RE/MAX agents in the state of Texas. Today, I'm a multi-market center owner, MAPS Bold coach, part of the Keller Williams University Master Faculty. Live in San Antonio, Texas, and let's go to work. Let's get right into this. How are we going to, what's the right mindset, skill set, and system to get you going? And by the way, my co-coach with Never Ending Referrals is a lady named Tammi Juengst, and Tammi is on vacation this week, so I'm flying solo. So if you put something in the chat, it might take me a moment to see that. I've got our assistant running on the chat. So if you'll be very specific with your question in case I don't see it right away, so that I'll know what you're referencing. And this can be interactive as too. I'll take pauses for y'all to chime in and make this interactive as well. All right, let's go to work. I'm going to pull up some slides. Here we go. So what we're really talking about is how do we turn a Washington into a Grant? And, and today what we're going to focus on is we talk about being the trusted advisor. So the system's going to involve, a hyper local 52 touch system, meaning do I touch my database once every week on average? We're going to talk about the ultimate conversation tool and DTD2 smart conversations. Now, DTD2, we'll talk about that if you're not familiar with it. If you've taken Bold, it was actually something introduced to Bold from Never Ending Referrals. It's called Doing the Database Too, and we'll talk about that. But let's get started with the mindset piece of this. And as we think about the mindset, this is something called the trust triangle. It came from the Harvard Business Review. And Harvard, in fact, we start off every session on these introductory sessions with the trust triangle, because this, in a nutshell, if you will, is really everything mindset-wise I need to know to have success with a relationship-based business. And now there's a system that helps me deliver on the points here, and yet this is the mindset, and that is, I'm wanting to build a foundation of trust with a group of people called a database. And when Harvard did this study, it was a study of how did leaders develop and maintain trust with the people they led. And when I heard this, it was very clear to me this was exactly what's required to have success with a database. And this is the key, is really what we teach here in terms of developing trust. So let me go into this real quick. And so we think about, there were these three components. They said the leaders that really developed and maintained trust. Well, there was a logic component. The logic component was, I know your reasoning and judgment is sound. In other words, people said, you obviously know your stuff. And so now, by the way, how do we develop that with a database? Well, that's a system that has to say, hey, I'm informed. I understand the market. Here's what you need to know. And you've got to have a delivery system for developing that logic point on the trust triangle. Now, the empathy piece is, the empathy part is, I believe you care about me and my success. You care about my well-being. And frankly, that's the conversation. We're going to talk about that today. And it's, how do I have value-added conversations that are more giving than they are taking? Again, value-added conversations that are more giving and taking. And by the way, all of this happens in a way that is very authentic. It's one of these things where people, whoops. Okay, let's get, I don't know, something all of a sudden went crazy, excuse me. It's all of a sudden where they really know I'm experiencing a real authentic human being. It's not a cell. It's not a script. It's a conversation. It's a real person. The things that they do are thoughtful and needed and helpful to me versus just sales calls attempting to make a sale. And this is critical, because when our consumer says it's 10 years between transactions, then we have to form a type of relationship that creates meaning and is of contribution versus just sales. Of course, we want their referrals, and yet we're going to show how do we earn those. And so as we go down this journey today, what we're really talking about, if I'm going to get a $50 return, and by the way, when I say a $50 return, David Huffaker out of Middle Tennessee has taken our program years ago, I think 3 times, and implemented much of our system, then plussed it. He's got, I don't know, 300 plus million business expansion business, and built the database portion really off the foundation of the things we're going to share with you today. And so he had a couple of years at $52 for every dollar spent on the database, $54, and then a couple of years ago it was $71. And by the way, that was a $230 million year, 46% from the database. So do the math. And it was a return of $71 for every dollar spent on the database. So this is really doable. And you've got to have to create the connection or flow. We're going to talk about this term flow or connection. To create this, it requires us to be really intentional and to have a multi-channel approach. And we're going to talk about some of those channels today, which that means, snail mail. Yes, it works, especially when you're in flow. The conversations we have, the emails, the social post and text engagement. And to tell you just how important this thing or this idea of flow is, you'll excuse me, my computer just wants to do things I don't want it to do. To think about how important this idea of connection or flow is, I want to share with you a story. And I'm driving back from Austin, driving here to San Antonio, and I get a call, and on the dashboard it says Barbara DeLamo. And it's a 210 area code, so I know it's San Antonio, and yet I can't place the name. My first thought is, who's Barbara? I don't know a Barbara. And yet I must know her because she's in my phone. She's showing up on the screen. So I did maybe what you would do. I took the call and I said, "Hey, Barbara, what's up?" And again, not having a clue who Barbara is. And she goes, "Well," I got to use her voice because it wouldn't be the same without it. And she goes, "Well, hi, Steve." And I go, "Hey, Barbara, what's up? What can I do for you?" And she goes, "Well, hey, I'm just calling to wish you a happy birthday." Now, by the way, it was exactly this time of year. It was July 9th or July 10th. Of that year, and she's calling to wish me happy birthday. And I go, "Well, Barbara, you're a little early. My birthday is not actually till the 31st, but thanks." And she goes, "I know, I wanted to be the first one." And she goes, "Am I the first one?" I said, "Yeah, I think probably by a long shot." And again, I still can't place Barbara. The voice, none of it, I can't put a finger on who Barbara is. And then she says, "Well, Steve, I took Bold from you. The first Bold you did in San Antonio in 2009, I took Bold from you." She goes, "You're still doing Bold?" And I said, "Yeah, I sure am." And we talked about Bold and where it was at and where I was doing Bold. And then from that, she said, "I know you had a girlfriend that lived in San Antonio, and, you're originally from this area, and you guys still together?" And I said, "Yeah, we are." And she goes, "What was her name again?" I said, "Shelly." And she goes, "Yeah, I know she sponsored one of our Bolds. She seemed really cool." And she asked about Shelly. And then she said, "So what are you guys doing for fun in San Antonio?" And we chatted just a few minutes, and she gave us actually a recommendation of a great brunch place. She said, "Hey, tried this new place this week. You might want to check it out." And unfortunately, COVID took them out. It was, and then we chatted about that for a minute. And then she said, "Well, what kind of big plans do you and Shelly have coming up?" We talked about a trip to Egypt and some other trips that we had planned. And the whole conversation, folks, was 6 minutes. 6 minutes. At the end of that 6 minutes, I felt completely connected and in flow with Barbara. Whereas 7 minutes before, had you called asking for who would be a great referral in San Antonio, Barbara wasn't even on my radar. And yet, here's the important part of this conversation. It's not just about that conversation. It's about the realization that came from that conversation. Because see, when I hung up the phone, I noticed that it said Barbara, maybe Barbara DeLamo, not Barbara DeLamo. And I know on an iPhone, when it says maybe, that means they're in your correspondence. And I said, apparently I've got some emails or something from Barbara. So when I got home, I decided to pull Barbara up because I was curious. And I pulled up my emails, and here's what I found. I'd been getting an email from Barbara every 3 weeks for 7 years. Every 3 weeks for 7 years. Now, I want somebody to chime in. I mean, when you hear that, what does it tell us? Feel free to unmute yourself. And when you hear that story, what's the moral of the story?
Hello?
Yeah.
I would probably say that number one, that her database did majority of the heavy lifting, but also she's on top of it because she manually called you on your to essentially connect for your birthday.
Yeah. Right, Tony. Absolutely. What else, guys?
Everyone's got a birthday.
So that's a nice gambit, right? You know, there's an opportunity, you know, Stephen, everybody's got a birthday, so it's a great reconnect point. What else?
Yeah,
she obviously has
for
a
me,
pretty good follow-up system.
So go ahead,
for me,
William.
for me, I would say you were not catching a problem. You were letting the ball down in this game, because for the mere fact that for 7 years she was emailing you, and she did call you today, and you were oblivious to the fact of who was calling you. I think you were letting the ball down in some way.
Mm-hmm. So you think about that. Yeah, I mean, thank you, William. So think about this for a second, guys. If she had never made the call, then, you know, it would have been just more emails that I wasn't reading that were coming through. And here's the interesting thing. You go back and, you know, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I get another email from Barbara, and I did something with that email I probably had not done with any of the others. I actually opened it and didn't read it word for word, and yet I went through it. 3 weeks later, get another one, same thing. And so, you know, the bigger lesson is that if I'm going to have my email work, if I'm going to have my direct mail work, there has to be a connection or a relationship there. And as soon as Barbara made that, got in flow with me, everything began to flow. Once she connected with me and had a meaningful conversation. Now, by the way, she never asked me for business on that call. She did ask about my life. In fact, there was a very important, you know, system that she used, or process she used, and I'm sure y'all caught it, which was Barbara engaged me with Ford questions. In fact, she actually went through the entire model of Ford. You don't have to in a conversation, you know, to get it started. It just so happened that the natural flow of this conversation, which was not forced, it was very natural. It hit all the points of Ford. Now, remember this, Ford stands for, let me pull this up. Oops. You know, Ford stands for family and friends, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And so Barbara, she engages me with Ford, and we think about, she hit every point. Family, she asked about Shelley. Occupation, she asked about Bold. What's going on with Bold? Recreation, what are you guys doing for fun in San Antonio? Gave us a couple of tips. Dreams, what are your big future plans? We talked about the trip to Egypt. And so just a simple conversation and using this little model. And by the way, you generally are going to pick up on things. She actually asked me, what she did ask me a point. She said, when she asked about Shelley, she said, I know you're originally from here. Maybe you had plans to maybe move back to the area. Did you ever make the move? And I said, actually, I did 2.5 years ago. She goes, man, I guess I was a day late and $1 short on that one. And I said, well, of course, Barbara, I'm licensed. I represented myself. And yet, you know, right there in just a conversation, listening for signs of change or knowing something about the person's situation, she could have easily created an opportunity, especially if she'd have made the call 3 years earlier when she hadn't been in flow with me. So here's something I want you to write this down. And this comes from Susan Scott in her program, Fierce Conversations. And Susan Scott tells us, she said, the conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. If we're going to have real relationships that are meaningful and add value, there has to be a conversation. And by the way, this transcends any generation. You know, we think social media is a relationship, and it really isn't. To have meaningful relationship and to be in flow with somebody, there's got to be a conversation element. Maybe some of it's via text and messenger, And yet finding these times to engage people in real value added conversations like we're going to share with you today becomes critical. So one of the things that we do to manage these conversations is something we call the database 2, or doing the database 2, or DTD2. And the discipline in never-ending referrals, and then the discipline we introduced to Bold with DTD2 is this, is there's 26 letters of the alphabet. And they've been chunked down into 13 two-letter groups. Now, if you think about this, if you've got 13 two-letter groups, 13 times 4 is 52. So that means that every quarter, I get through my database following this DTD2 model. And so on F and G week, I'm calling everybody whose last name begins with F or last name begins with G. On I and Q week, it's everybody whose last name begins with I and begins with Q. Same with the rest of the DTD2 groups. And so it becomes this little discipline. In fact, one of the great disciplines of doing the database 2 is this, is if we're going to have the conversations, we've got to put them on a schedule. And what many people do with their database is, and again, we said today, it's a mindset, it's a skill set, and a system. So here we're going system, DTD2 is a system. It's where every week on Monday, I begin with that week's two-letter group. And I know what conversation I'm going to have. In fact, we even teach you how to prime the conversation through social media, through using some tricks with your social media to broadcast in advance to set the stage for your conversation. And when it comes to DTD2, one of the things my one-on-one coaching clients, loved when we first introduced this back in, 2014. There are thousands of agents around the country today doing DTD2. And one of the things that they so love about it is, instead of just loading my 400 people, 100 people, whatever it is on a dialer, and just powering through them, we want, I got it done. That defeats the objective. The objective is to deepen a relationship, maybe find a referral, find out who's got plans, coming in the near future. And one of the things we want to, if the conversation is the relationship, how do I have more conversations with each DTD2 group? And so one of the things we teach you to do is what we call the 3-attempt approach. And so that means on Monday, if my A&W group, or actually this week's B&E, if my B&E group has 50 members, I'm going to dial all 50 on a Monday, and I can probably dial about 25 an hour. And then I'm going to probably have, let's say I have 15 conversations. So in a couple hours, 2.5 hours, I have 15 conversations out of my 50, 15 answered the phone. That's 30% of my B&E group. Now, rather than just being happy with 30%, I'm going to go ahead and dial the remaining 35 on Wednesday. I'm going to take a break for a day. On Wednesday, I'm going to call the remaining 35, and let's say I connect with 15 more. Now I've talked to 60% of my DTD2 group instead of 30%. I've talked to 30 out of 50. So I'm going to take the remaining 20 on Thursday at a different time slot, because I'm obviously not reaching them in the earlier time slot, maybe in the late afternoon, early evening. I reach out to the remaining 20, and let's say I connect with 10 of those. Now I've talked to 40 of the 50. And I've had value-added conversations. I gave more than I took. I've never set up for rejection, because I have conversations that do not foster rejection. They foster relationship. They foster adding value. And so now I've talked to 80%. And how did I improve my odds of getting a high return on the conversations that I'm putting out to this database? Now, here's a pro tip. Write this down. After the first call, I'm going to leave a voicemail. I'm not going to leave a voicemail the second time, because I'm going to set up so that I don't have to on the first one. Here's the pro tip. Always make it okay for them not to call you back. You're going, what? Yes, always make it okay for them not to call you back. I mean, think about it. If you're like me, you've probably had moments where somebody's asked you to return a call and you got busy and time got away. And you thought about it later at the most inopportune moment, so you couldn't. And then you forgot again later. And then, by the way, you start to feel guilty when you do think about it. And you might even get into a little bit of avoidance posture now because you're feeling so guilty that you don't want to face that. And so never put people in a position where they might feel like they owe us something, or that they could have guilt around or obligation around the relationship. So the voicemail script will always sound something like this. And I'll do it in the context of the conversation I'm going to share with you later. He said, "Hey, it's Steve Schlueter over at Keller Williams. Hey, I was thinking about you today, wanted to reach out, see how you were. I trust everybody's having a great summer. And plus, I'm working on a little project for my friends and clients, thought you could help with. And hey, I know you're probably busy as can be with summertime. So don't worry about calling back. I'll reach out to you later in the week. And of course, you know the number. If you have a chance, feel free. And yet I'll reach out later in the week. Take care. Talk to you soon." And now I've taken the burden off them of feeling an obligation. And if they happen to desire to call me back, that's great. And then if nothing else, I've queued up that I'm going to be calling. And now they're expecting my call if they've heard the voicemail and they know why I'm calling. And the pickup rate goes up on that second call. And so I'm setting this up to win. Now, by the way, folks, this is about working a system. We said mindset, skill set, system. And now, by the way, the conversations you have are part of the skill set that you build. And we're going to get into that, in just a minute. Let me go back to the screen, however. And so when it comes to this thing called DTD2, right now we're in B&E week. And then, that's going to really help us have the conversations that are going to foster, the empathy, the connection, the authenticity. But then we got to go back to that. How do I really build the logic part? And the logic part is done a lot through your marketing, and in your conversations. And yet, if you're in flow with people, like Barbara became, all of a sudden I pay more attention to your emails. All of a sudden I pay more attention to your direct mail, and these things begin to work better for you. So one of the things that we advocate in Never Ending Referrals is, and by the way, if you're not on a 36 touch, get to 36 or 40 touches first, and then start to build on that. We advocate for a 52 touch. And what that really looks like, it's hyper local and it's multi-channel. Here you see some examples of some of the direct mail pieces that our agents put out. We've got, this is featuring a local artist and what's going on in the communities on the backside. Here's a sample of a newsletter. This is a back of an infographic postcard. And we've got a system where quarterly they get a newsletter. And then we call this the item of value card, because it's community events on the backside featuring a local artist, and it has some shelf life. And so those are direct mail pieces. Then we got a monthly local expert email. In fact, you can find a couple of smart plans. If you'll look for auto-connect, I'll give you that as a gift too. Some of them would require editing because they're hyper-local. And yet there's some resources you could bring to bear, auto-connect. And you can find some smart plan emails to help you maybe start to build out the 2 monthly local expert emails. And of course, with our folks, we go through the talking points. If you're part of our Never Ending Referrals community, go through the talking points and how do we build all those into our conversations? And then our quarterly DTD2 contacts. So when we think about this, it's 2 direct mail pieces a month, 2 monthly local expert emails. That's 24 and 24, that's 48. I add my DTD2, my quarterly contact, and there's your 52 touch system. And so now it sounds like a lot of work, and it is. And it's yet once it's built into a system, we give you some tips on how to build all of this. Get with a local mail vendor, and they can help you create templates in a routine and a schedule, which makes this much easier to do. skip the newsletter piece until you get further along. And then of course, we help our Never Ending Referrals community folks now with email content and resources as well, that you can put together and put out to your folks. So again, there's this 2 pages of a 4-page newsletter. Here's the card that we were mentioned with the events on the backside, an infographic where every month they don't have the newsletter, they get the infographic with depicting what's happening in the market, with a call to action on the backside of the infographic, and it's all built as a system. So that becomes step number 2 of, if I'm going to optimize my database for getting the optimal return, for being able to, turn, the Washingtons into grants, then first I have to have the conversations. Then I've got to have a logic component to my my campaign that says I know what's going on in the market. And especially right now, guys, we have a very confused consumer. And one of the things that we do quarterly on Never Ending Referrals is we go, what are the market of the moment conversations this quarter? Now, keep in mind, when you're doing DTD2, you can have the same conversation for 13 weeks because it's 2 letters a week by last name, first letter of last name. And I have the conversation week 1 with this week B&E. Next week, when it's DNO week, I'm going to have the same conversation with my DNOs. And the week after that, I'm going to have the same conversation with my C&Ks. And I'm just going to follow this little system, and I'm going to get better and better and better at the conversation as we go. Now, we're going to go into one of those conversations right now. Megan, do we have any pressing things in the chat that I need to address before we move on to that? And if anybody has a question, okay. If anybody has a question, if you'll just raise your hand. If you go down to the bottoms where it says somewhere, you can raise your hand. Let's go to Tony. Tony's got his hand up. Come on, Tony.
Hello, can you hear me?
We got you, Tony.
All right. So I had 2 questions. One, you went over like the 52 touch breakdown. Can you go over that again? And then you had the script for the Monday, like when you called them, you said Monday, Wednesday, and what was the last day? I'm assuming that's Friday. It could
be any combination, Tony. Our discipline is Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it's Monday in the morning, it's Wednesday in the morning, and it's Thursday late afternoon, say from 4:30 to 6.
Okay.
And it's getting that different window. And then the breakdown on the 52 touch is really this. It's 2 direct mail pieces. So whether it be a jumbo postcard, a newsletter, whatever it is, jumbo postcard's the least expensive way to do this per piece. And then, and so one being an infographic on the market and a call to action. And by the way, when you put out an infographic, folks, here's a little tip. Let me go back. It's one thing to put, data out, and you can, when you put this out, that's reporting. And then what you really want to do is on the backside is interpret the market. What is this telling us about the market? And then, by the way, if you have any, and then that would be a message. Write this down, folks. Thank you for asking this question, Tony. Does my message match the market? And what's my MOFR? And you probably heard Gary Keller talk about MOFR. It's make, offer, for immediate response. We have a whole session in Never Ending Referrals dedicated to what's your message and what's your MOFR. So you've got data. What does the data mean? Becomes interpretation. And then, from there, a call to action. If you have any plans, here's the biggest MOFR we're encouraging people to use right now is this one. If you have any real estate plans in the next 12 to 24 months, please schedule a no obligation strategy session to explore the opportunities of buying or selling in today's market. You might be surprised at some of the opportunities available. And it's just simply right now, we have to get the kitchen tables so that we can help people understand the market. Cash, go ahead.
Hey, Stephen, how you doing?
Doing well, sir.
Good. My question is about the Auto Connect. Is that in Command?
I do have some smart plans labeled Auto-Connect that we do for our market centers, and you will find them labeled Auto-Connect. And of course, be careful. Some of them require customization, and just look at, maybe you have to change a paragraph to put in some local information. Okay.
Okay, so we can get that up here in Portland, Maine.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got some additional things that we provide our members in Never Ending Referrals, a consulting guide, various resources, to help you make the most of some of these tools that we make available to you. So, all right, let's keep going. How are we doing on time, Megan? We're good. All right.
So someone asked if you could repeat the MOFR message really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So the MOFR is this. Remember, MOFR stands for Making Offer for Immediate Response. So I put out a message that matches my market. And so today would probably be something about the market trends, interest rates, inflation, things that are in the buzz, inventory that have the consumer confused. And so I'm going to build a message around that, and that demonstrates that I understand what's happening, that I understand their concerns, and here is a perspective from a professional that I want you to hear. And then the MOFR, after I've kind of explained through the message, now we're talking about a marketing message, can be a conversation message as well. The MOFR is an invitation. If you have any plans to buy or sell real estate in the next 12 to 24 months, please contact me for a no obligation strategy session to explore the opportunities of today's market. And leave it at that. And then get to a kitchen table. The thing you have to do today, guys, the consumer might want to act today. They don't know if they should, because they hear one thing in the media one day, they hear something else in the media another day, and they're confused. They don't know who to trust. And that's why you have to go to work becoming the trusted advisor. This becomes the mindset again. I have to go that my number one mission, if I'm going to build a business where people trust me, they ask me, they listen to me, they do business with me, I have to be that trusted advisor. In a world where they're getting so much confusion and there's so many things on social media, how do I get to be that person they trust? And so I can put out messages that show all the opportunity of the market, and yet I've got to get to their kitchen table and have a real conversation about their goals and desires. And then together we decide if it's the right thing for them to do, informed on what really is happening in the marketplace. So, in fact, I'll play a little game with you guys real quick. If everybody will just open your chat box. And if let's see if I can get mine open here in front of me. Here's the game that I want to play with you. And that is this. I'd like you to put in the chat either optimist or pessimist, or you can just put op or pez. And here's what I'm asking you to do. When it comes to interest rates, don't put anything yet because you don't know what the question is. When it comes to interest rates, am I an interest rate optimist? And let me explain it. Meaning I believe that we'll be sub 5% interest rates within the next 2 to 3 years? Or am I an interest rate pessimist? And I don't think we're going to see sub 5% for maybe many years. And which one are you? Put it in there. Ooh, y'all are hitting it hard too.
About half and half?
Yeah, it looks like maybe it's leaning a little bit more optimist. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Thank you guys for responding. Here's what I'm going to tell you. At the end of the day, which one is right, it doesn't matter. Just be certain and have a message that is certain so that people can borrow your certainty. And by the way, it has to be based on something other than just feeling. You know, can I make a case for it? And of course, we always say, and I have no crystal ball, and yet here's why we believe. Yeah, and if you're the optimist, you have your belief. Or you say, here's why we believe, and I'm a pessimist and we have the belief. I will tell you that I'm an interest rate pessimist, meaning I think interest rates are going to be between 6.25% and 7.25% for quite a while. Maybe we get just below 6%, in the next year or so. And some people would say, well, I'm an optimist because we're coming on an election year. Well, here's the thing. The political parties today are more afraid of inflation than they are high interest rates. And, this is the one part of the economy that's really feeling it, obviously, with mortgage being what it is, and maybe car loans and things of that nature. And yet the bigger fear is inflation. And we had a whole bonus session we did on this in Never Ending Referrals a couple of weeks ago on how do you explain these things to your consumer. But at the end of the day is you've got to have a position. If you go out there, well, on one hand this, on one hand this, who knows? They can't borrow that certainty, and they stay in fear. They've got to borrow certainty. Now, if I'm wrong, then they just move forward anyway, because it's probably not going to get a lot better. Well, if I'm wrong, hallelujah, they're going to get to refinance somewhere down the road. Now, by the way, if I'm right and they can get, and interest rates go up another 0.5%, well, they locked in the best deal they could right now. So it's build a value, build certainty, let them borrow your certainty. Okay, let's go to the last thing real quick, and then we'll wrap up on some thoughts. And then we've got a couple of free gifts for you before you go. One's going to be the conversation we're going to touch on right now.
Desktop 6HLQ.
I'm sorry, but before you do that real fast, I just want to make sure I have all the touches, the 2 direct mail, the 1 infographic call to action. Were there any else that I was missing?
Yeah, the 2 direct mail pieces was the infographic with a call to action. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was the local artist, that with, events, local events that are happening in the area. And so that one kind of has a little bit of a shelf life piece, right?
Okay.
And by the way, it gives you more of a community orientation. Hey, I'm like you, I'm part of the community. I like going to this, that, and the other things that are happening in our community. I'm part of our community. Okay. And then my emails would probably be something, I could use Neighborhood Nurture Smart Plan for one of them. You could take a look at the auto-connect things that we mentioned as well. And maybe I'm addressing things like interest rates or inflation, or is it a good time to buy? Are we overvalued? These could be things that I build into my email campaigns, and just a focused story on what's going on. All right. So let's go to this piece right here. Now, this is one of our kind of go-to conversations. This is a conversation you can have with your database, including the people you've been out of touch with. Excuse me, let me take a beverage pause. Including the folks you've been out of touch with. And now you see this couple here, and they're thinking about financial planner, handyman, pediatrician, dentist, lawyer, mechanic. Who are these people? These are your clients who just moved into your community, and they're going, okay, I don't know anybody here. Who do I go to for all these things? And Gary Keller shared, several years ago on the stage at Family Reunion, he said, why does Angie's List even exist? He said, folks shouldn't be going to Angie's List. They should be coming to you. When they begin a relationship with you as their real estate agent, you should also become their community liaison, helping them find their way into getting settled in the community. And you're going, well, Steve, I didn't sign up to be a concierge. I'm a real estate agent. And I go, and I get it. And why wouldn't you be their most valued point of contact, that person that they trust, so that you don't wind up being like most of the agents out in the country, where the people can't remember who their real estate agent was because the agent didn't stay in touch. And the agent didn't stay in touch in a meaningful, value-added and needed way. So this is a way for you to be value-added, for them to need and desire to have a relationship with you. And it's also a powerful strategy we cover in one of our never-ending referral sessions around building a business-to-business network, building a business-to-business database. In fact, we're going to give you a sample of some of that here in just a second. In fact, we'll put it in the chat here in just a little bit. Before we go, let's go to a conversation that we call the 5-star conversation. Megan, you going to help me with this? All right. And we're going to call this the 5-star. This is the 5-star conversation. And as I'm reaching out to my database, I might have done a little social media stalking before I reached out, just to see what maybe people have been up to help open the conversation, especially if I haven't been in touch. So I'm going to have Megan be one of those people. Maybe I haven't been in touch in a while. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Megan. Steve Schlueter over at Keller Williams. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Hey, well, thanks for taking my call. Hey, you know, man, it's been a long time since I talked to you, and I noticed, I saw you on Facebook the other day. It looked like you and your son, and you know, we're at would you go to a monster truck rally?
We went to Monster Jam World Finals in Nashville. Yeah.
Monster Jam World Finals. Wow. I saw that, and I was like, and you've been on my mind. I've been meaning to touch base with you, and in fact, we're working on a little project as well that I thought you could help with. And but before I get into that, just tell me, how have you and Derek been getting along? Any exciting adventures lately?
We've had a few trips to Florida. We're actually in Florida right now, just to visit the in-laws and have a little beach time.
Sounds great. What kind of things will you do while you're in Florida?
For sure, go to the beach. We're actually going to leave him with the in-laws, and we're going to go hang out with some friends of mine, have some adult only time.
Good for you. We need that every now and then, right?
Yes.
For sure. Hey, well, let me tell you about this little project I'm working on, Megan, and maybe you can help me. And, you know, as a real estate agent, you can imagine we've got people moving to the area, Megan, all the time that are in need of service providers and resources because they're new to our community. They left everything behind from where they left. And we're building a directory of great service providers. In fact, we wanted to curate this from you know, from our clients. You know, you guys know the best people. Y'all are using them every day. And I'm just curious, who's really had a big impact, maybe provided y'all with like a 5-star experience in the, you know, last month or so? Y'all had anybody that just blew your socks off?
Oh, we had a really good company come out and help us with our AC. I got a little wild with the weed eater and accidentally hit a wire, so they had to come fix it.
Wow. And they got it all, and everything fixed up and operating properly?
Yes, very quickly, thank goodness, with the 90+ temperatures. So
Amen. Amen. Well, let me ask you a question, Megan. Sounds like, you know, somebody we might want to add to our directory, and they just really a stellar AC company.
They are.
Okay. Well, love to add them. You know, what's the name of the company?
It's called Hiller, and they actually do plumbing and electrical.
Plumbing and electrical. Okay, fantastic. Have you used them more than the one time?
Yeah, we actually, after that time, we signed up for a program where they'll come out every year and do tune-ups for us and check our electricity and plumbing. That's included in a little monthly membership.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to include them. Is there a certain point of contact I could reach out to over there?
Yeah, I talked to a guy named Ryan.
Ryan, okay. And I'd get the phone number from her and say, hey, Megan, when I reach out to Ryan, would it be okay if I mentioned your name?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, perfect. Hey, thanks for that. I really appreciate it. I look forward to putting them in our directory. And in fact, it doesn't cost them anything. And then as soon as we publish the directory, I'll let you know how to access it, Megan, so y'all can take advantage of, you know, some of the folks on this list. And hey, maybe you can help me with another introduction. You know, one of the things that we had back in April, we got a lot of requests for CPAs, and mine retired a couple of years ago, and I'm really the one I have now. I I can't say I would refer. I'm looking for somebody that's maybe a little more astute in advanced tax planning and stuff. And just curious, do you have an introduction in a great CPA you might be able to help us with?
I don't. We haven't found one that we just love yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I tell you what, I know with our network being what it is, Megan, that I'm going to find that person. And when I do, would you like me to connect you with that person that our database says is really great?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, perfect. Hey, I appreciate that. I'll make sure to set that up for you. And hey, Megan, just so you know, too, it's a crazy wackadoo real estate market out there right now. And if you have any plans, real estate in the next 12 to 24 months, let me know. We probably ought to schedule a strategy session. Any plans for you guys in the next 12 to 24 months or so?
We are actually wanting to move to either the Alabama or Florida coast next summer, get closer to family.
All right. LA, lower Alabama, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, going to LA. Wow. So getting close to family. And so you said, like, is that where your in-laws, is that where you're at now?
We're in Pensacola right now. Yep, that's where my in-laws live. And then my mom is in Fairhope, Alabama. So
Gotcha.
we're kind of looking between the two.
Gotcha. Well, that would be perfect for family, wouldn't it? Just curious, Megan, I mean, what will that do for you guys getting a little closer to family?
Just the help it provides with a toddler. Any of y'all that have kids?
Yeah.
No, it takes a village.
Yeah, it does, for sure. Well, I tell you what, Megan, we can certainly schedule something. What's the ideal time frame for y'all on this?
Looking to move after school lets out in May and before he'd start again in August.
Okay, so next summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a little early, but did y'all want to meet sooner just to kind of strategize, or what would be the ideal time for me to follow up with you on that?
Maybe fall, so we
Okay.
can figure out what all we need to do to our house to get it ready and time frame of when to list and all of that.
Yeah, I'm perfect. Happy to do that. I'll put that down for follow-up. Hey, in the meantime, I'm going to connect you with a CPA as soon as we get that in order. And thank you for the connection with Hiller AC. I'll get reaching out to them right away so that we can get them included in our directory.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right, now let's wrap that up. Thank you, Megan. And so I'd wrap up the call. Now think about this for a second, guys. Let's dissect this call. We call this the 5-star conversation. In fact, Megan, go ahead and put in the chat the 5-star conversation. My first gift to you is the 5-star script. And then I've got one more gift for you before we're done here in a few minutes. And but you've got that right there. And so the 5-star script, it's this powerful conversation because it talks about building a directory. And by the way, I got two more gifts for you. Here's one. Here's a sample directory of one of my agents in one of my market centers, that she built. And so this is in a Word doc. You can kind of use this as a beginning. Of course, change the logo, put your stuff, and make all that happen. And this is an example of what that directory might look like, or vendor list. And we've got that in the chat for you as well. But the next thing you want to just clear out on that conversation. I did something with Ford that I trust that maybe you captured. I mentioned that I had a business nature to the call in the beginning. And I said, but before I get to that, and then I asked her about Florida and, what was going on there. And we had a conversation about them. And then I transitioned to the purpose of the call. I told her I was going to have a business purpose, which was the directory. And then I got into the purpose of the call. And then we wound up, even though I injected real estate, you call it a wackadoo market, whatever it is, to kind of make it lighthearted, to have the business component to the conversation, but then also wrapping up with, Ford and talking about her family and a little lighten it up with lower Alabama, LA. And if you really want to make your business calls more conversational, some of the strategies we teach you are things like this, is sandwich it into a Ford conversation. And we've got a variety of never-ending referrals. We've got a variety of scripts and conversations that are built this way to help you do this. But let me introduce you to never-ending referrals, if I could, real quick, folks. And then I've got a final gift for you for being with us today. Never-ending referrals, this is a brief outline of our never-ending referrals primary 8 lessons. In fact, at noon today, we begin with session 1 again. And we're a membership community. I'm going to tell you right now, it's $39 a month. It's the least expensive thing you can do for your business. We have some people who have been with us 2.5, 3 years. We have others that do the 5-month minimum. They got the lessons that they needed and they took it and ran. So it's $39 a month, and we'll tell you how to register. In fact, if you'll go ahead and put the registration link, Megan, in the chat, that would be great. But we're going to start today with setting the foundation. And, then we go, who are you being for your database? How do you overcome behavioral style, perceived limits or limiting beliefs that keep us from succeeding with our database? And then business to business and social media. What are the real tactics that work for me to build a business to business network and to use social media in a way that I can get in it and get out of it in just minutes a day instead of getting sucked into a vortex, a bottomless pit. Client parties and events. We get into the how do I really launch the relationship with the 8 touches to a lasting impression. How do I become that trusted advisor? What are the strategies to be that economist of choice? We do cover geofarming because it is a form of a database that is really back in vogue today. And then we wrap up with your schedule and video. How do you utilize video with your database? Also, we have each week we have interviews that we provide you with. Here's the daily group who've been great contributors and really show us how to do client events at the highest level, including the whole reverse bold 100 strategies. And so we begin again today. You can go to the link, and again, Megan, if you'll put the link back in there today, in just about an hour, we kick off lesson 1 again. You also have access to all the recordings. You have access to a self-paced version. If I want to go right today and learn all the things about client events, I can go to the self-paced portion in the portal, immediately access that, and be ready to go. Again, it's $39 a month. There's a 5-month minimum, and you can check us out at neverendingreferrals.com or just simply go to the link that's there for you today. And here's my last gift for you today for being with us. And we are right on the allotted time for today. Is I have a book that really is the journey of doing business this way. And it's actually a story, parable type story book that takes an agent on a journey from a struggling business to thinking they can't build or not equipped to build a relationship-based business and to do it. It's about a 2-hour read, 2.5-hour read. And today, the link that's in the chat, today only, if you have an ebook or e-reader app, you can download the ebook for free. It's also on Audible. So if you have an Audible credit and you want to listen, use one of your Audible credits. Or if you're like me and you prefer an actual book, you can order on Amazon the book for $7.99, and it'll be shipped to you via your Prime membership. So any questions? I'd love to hear a few ahas from you guys today.
There's a Kindle question in the chat that I don't know the answer to, Steve, from Mindy.
So tell me the question.
Can you only download the ebook if you have a Kindle? I tried downloading it and don't use Kindle or have an Amazon account.
Okay. There is a Kindle Reader app for your smartphone. So if you download it, it'll give you access to how to access the app, and you can read it on the app. So let's see. Christine said something. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So Christina says, when I first took Never Ending Referrals, and you said, I should add my kids' doctors and dentists and such to my database. I thought it was awkward and crazy. I did, as you said, though, and I have to tell you that every time I visit them now, they all comment on receiving my mailer. And every appointment, they ask me something about real estate. Wow. Thank you for adding that, Christine. I mean, so this stuff works, I guess. If you just you have a system and you got a mindset and then and some skills, it's going to work. All right. Looks like we got all of it. Hey guys, I just want to thank you for being with us today. I trust you got some resources, things that you can use. Make that investment today. Sign up today. Go join us here on Never Ending Referrals to beginning your journey. If your halftime right now is, I'm tired of my database looking like a train wreck. If it looks like your closet or it looks like your garage and you go, it's time to straighten the garage. It's time to get control. I got a Maria Kondo my closet. Maybe it's time to Maria Kondo your database. And to get the return that's in there, our stated goal in Never Ending Referrals is this, folks, to get a 10% return on your database, which means if I've got 200, it's good for 20 deals, and grow it by 250 or more over the next 12 months. So join us today. Sign up. Let's be your partner in that journey of generating Never Ending Referrals. And again, we're noon 3 times a month on Monday, Central Time. We provide you with recorded conversation interviews along with a tech interview each month so that you can hear from more experts, people that are doing this at the extremely high levels. And I trust we'll see many of you at noon, or if you got a conflict today, join us next Monday. Everything's recorded. Take care, folks. See you soon.